Together, let's embark on a scientific exploration of yoga, where you are the scientist, your heart is the laboratory, and you are the outcome. Namaste. Welcome to today's program. Like every Sunday, today we will be meditating with Daaji. And Daaji will also be sharing with us his wisdom and teachings on how to deal with anger. How can heartfulness help us resolve this very critical issue that we all face in our lives? How do thoughts become knots in our consciousness? What is the effect of anger? Let's explore all these questions and more with Daaji.
Namaste everyone. In earlier episodes, we spoke about how we form samskars or impressions due to our prejudices or emotional baggage and or our likes and dislikes. Today we shall look at some of the aspects on how these samskars come to fore in the field that is in osmosis with our soul. What is this field? Just as every planet or star has its own gravitational field, likewise each soul has its signatory field. This field is always in flux that warps or expands or contracts based on our attitude. The feelings of the heart shapes this attitude. When you are joyful or cheerful or internally so grateful, the heart opens up far and wide. But moment it encounters something you don't like, which is so unpleasant, it simply contracts. Like that Lajavanti plant, touch me not plant, it just folds in. Thus the field of consciousness keeps changing. My Guruji, Pujya Babuji Maharaj, often used the word knots, K-N-O-T-S in English, and granthis while he spoke in Hindi, while referring these yogic chakras. So yogic chakras, it gives you the idea of spin, a circular movement, which is true. It can be a very precise, harmonious, circular movement when it is fully evolved. But before that, what happens? It doesn't evolve as much. It remains in the form of a knot or a granthi. And we all carry that. Instead of the chakra or the will, we are carrying the granthis in us. It is quite significant and meaningful to use this word granthi or the knots. Why? Because if I have to explain this in poetic way, in a ghazal style, something that was sung much earlier by Jagjit Singh in his 80s or 90s, प्यार का पहला खत लिखने में वक्त तो लगता है, नए परिंदों को उड़ने में वक्त तो लगता है, गांठ अगर लग जाए तो फिर रिश्ते हो या दूरी, लाख करे कोशिश खुलने में वक्त तो लगता है. It simply conveys, be it relationship or be it a thread, you end up forming knots of relationship or knots of a thread, and it takes time to unravel it and make it straight and simple. Imagine you have one thread, you keep in the wallet. Over a period of time, it will get tangled up. You may not have to do anything at all, but it will get tangled. If you store two or more together, you will be surprised to see complex entanglement between these two or three or multiple threads. Something like this happens with our emotional energies arising out of feelings. Feelings are influenced by so many other factors. All these, they come together and form a complex network. The footprint of this energy, it settles in our subtle bodies, which we carry life after life every time there is transmigration of our soul. With whom do we share and discuss the ideas, thoughts, and feelings? Naturally, our dearest ones, our close friends, or our colleagues. Each thought or idea or feeling exchanged will create wide range of ripples. The concepts that resonate will find some level of reinforcements, while when we disagree, we end up forming knots, emotional knots. These knots affect our field of consciousness. One of the elements of this field of consciousness is ego, ahankar. Once the ego is bruised because of disagreement, dissension, God help. That is why we struggle with our loved ones more than anyone else. We don't tangle with strangers in forming emotional knots. As in how we develop understanding as a result of purification through the heartfulness cleaning practices, we develop clarity, we develop confidence and courage. Those qualities arise from the spiritual conditions when we are fearless. Fear is the result of not being able to understand situations. When we have the ability to love and we are absorbed in love, we understand our circumstances and our loved ones. When you have a thread and it gets entangled, a knot is formed. Similarly, thoughts that get entangled up to form a vibratory patterns, it resembles a knot. Feelings that get jumbled up create a knot-like state at a specific point in our system. How does this happen? Let us revisit a thread analogy. Imagine a thread and think of our thoughts as straight threads. When you have not understood your own thought, it remains as a confusion and a knot is formed out of our thoughts. If you get another thought from another person, say your wife or your father or mother, which is contradictory to your thought, your ideas, it will form another knot between two thoughts, two ideas. This is how we keep on forming knots after knots, and based on the intensity of our reactions and responses under any situations, if we give energy to these knots, they become tighter and tighter and tighter. Haven't we seen whenever we have differences of opinions and we discuss a lot on that, and we stand to our own positions, what happens then? Opinions get tightened up and there is some kind of separation. Not just because of thoughts and ideas, but our emotional distances keep on increasing. You all know how tight knots are practically impossible to unravel. So, from this perspective, if you are capable of understanding a situation very well, then you will not form some scars or complexities and impressions. To further explain this, I would like to share a story with you from a life of a great Sufi saint, Junaid. He used to be visited frequently by a king from a nearby kingdom who wanted to be his disciple. Hearing about, this master's glory and about his miracles, the king thought, it will be wonderful if Junaid can make me his disciple. So he went with a caravan every year to meet this great master Junaid. But every year, Junaid told him, maybe some other time. The king couldn't understand why Junaid used to deny him this opportunity of becoming his disciple. So he started to monitor, rather surveil on Junaid's life. Every Friday evening, Junaid would go across the river where his native village was and spend at least 2 hours in the evening there, just when the sun was setting. So the king who was watching, he thought, wow, there must be something going on there. The king decided to stay on the other side of the river and watched what this Junaid was up to. Junaid went and spread a beautiful chadar or carpet on the river bank and lied down in the lap of a lady who was wearing a burqa. And she would feed him and she would offer him drinks. So the king thought, wow, what a fake person this Junaid is, and is known as a great master. I am lucky that he did not really initiate me, that he didn't make me his disciple. He is a phony master. When Junaid came back to this side of the river, his king was waiting to make an attempt to interrogate Junaid, the great master. Junaid said, King, you will regret this. You have a great misunderstanding about the whole situation. King insisted that he must know what was going on. So Junaid said, let's go. They boarded the same boat and he said, let's go, king, and see for yourself who this person is, in whose lap I had my head lovingly settled. The king, with his usual demeanor, said, okay, let's go. And there he introduces the lady to the king. She was an elderly person who was Junaid's mother. The king was flabbergasted with the whole episode and he said, what a mistake I have made in labeling such a holy person as a fake. So most importantly, we create a life that is based on our understanding or our misunderstanding of every little situation. Understanding brings happiness, peace and joy. And misunderstanding always brings about restlessness, confusion, and a lack of clarity. Our understanding and appreciations is also based on our conditioning. For example, a shoemaker will never miss an attention on your shoes. From the quality of the shoes, he will start assessing your status. Let loose a landscape architect or a Mali or a gardener or a romantic couple in a Central Park of New York City. Landscape architect will admire the park with its layout. The gardener will go gaga on seeing foliage and flowers, and romantic couple will be looking for some cozy corner to be in each other's arms, isn't it? So you see the play or the leela of conditioning. Let us revisit existentially a vital concept of clarity. Lack of clarity makes us lose confidence, as a result of which we lose our own radar, we lose our own inner compass each time it happens. Along with losing our compass and our conscience, we remain unsettled and irritated, even up to losing our temper. Temper, however great, it may be justifiable or it may not be justifiable, but it works like a matchstick. It tries to burn whatsoever comes on its path, and in the process, that matchstick also gets burnt. Anger is the biggest poison. It ruins our spiritual stature. Anyway, when all these offshoots are present, such as anger or misunderstanding, they end up creating toxic inner environment. starting with ourselves and ends up taking our family in its gambit. Eventually, if we continue like this, we get labeled as being toxic person or a person with a short fuse. The consequences are like a butterfly effect. This weakness destroys relationships. So cleaning comes to our rescue. With each evening, we clean off our impressions made during the day. In the day, whenever we feel the need to remove something that is troubling us, remember to sit quietly for a few minutes and do an emergency cleaning session. Imagine you went to a restaurant and had some samosas with tomato sauce or pasta with tomatoes, and you dropped some tomato sauce on your lovely new white shirt. Even if it's just a little stain, you will come home and immediately clean it, right? You know that if the stain sits and dries out, it will be much more difficult to remove. So, also with our inner self. Remove anything unwanted as soon as it happens. And when you anticipate trouble, you know you are going to face a situation that is already creating apprehension or fear or anxiety. When, like Duryodhana, you know what is good, but you are too weak to do it, do a pre cleaning before you face that event. It is a very effective tool in removing the cause of reaction before it actually occurs. So, using heartfulness cleaning in an emergency or in anticipation are both very effective. I hope that you are able to do these simple practices: meditation to revitalize you, cleaning to purify, and heartfelt prayer that would build our intimate connection with our Maker, the Lord. Thank you. So let's all meditate as usual. You all know how to meditate, and perhaps some of you do not really know how to meditate in joining us for the first time. This is how we meditate. Heartfulness way of meditation. It's very simple. Feel relaxed. Remove all the distractions if you might have, something like phones, and focus on the presence of divine light in our heart. Think that this divine light is attracting your attention inward, and retain this thought as long as you can. If by chance you happen to move away from this noble idea, when you are overwhelmed by so many thoughts, just remind yourself that right now I am meditating on the presence of divine light. Please start meditation. That's all. See you all next week, 9 a.m. at Asta Bhajan channel.